All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to now get into talking about the Vikings Cardinals game from Sunday. The Vikings rallying late to beat the Cardinals. And yeah, I mean, the Cardinals, they gave the Vikings problems early on in this game. Defensively, the Cardinals really shut down the Vikings offense. It looked like they'd pull off the upset. This would have been a big win for them, but, eventually Sam Darnold got into a rhythm, and they were able to pull off the comeback. And they're 10-2 right now. To be honest, didn't expect them. I mean, I had them at 6 wins, but because I didn't know how the quarterback position was going to play out for them, and so looking at this game though, like I said, Cardinals did a great job at shutting down that Vikings offense. And, like I said, the Vikings, they pulled off the comeback late. So to kind of go through it, at one point the game was, I think it was like 18-6 or 19-6. But yeah, so the Cardinals, they scored on their first possession. They kicked the field goal. The Vikings scored on their first possession. They also kicked the field goal, so they matched points. But then Aaron Jones fumbled, but that led to a missed field goal. And then in the second quarter, you had both teams exchange field goals. And then the Cardinals kicked a field goal before the end of the first half. That made it 9-6. And then the Vikings missed a field goal. The Cardinals kicked another one. That made it 12-6. And then it was 19-6. Kyler Murray completed a 15-yard touchdown pass to Marvin Harrison. And then the Vikings responded. They scored a touchdown on their next drive. So that made it 19-13. And then Kyler Murray threw a pick trying to hit Michael Wilson, who actually had a nice catch in this game. Did see the highlight of that. Then the Vikings kicked a field goal to make it a 3-point game. Cardinals then kicked another field goal. And then Sam Darnold throws a touchdown to Aaron Jones, so he redeemed himself after the fumble, a 5-yard touchdown. So, yeah, that made it 23-22. And then Kyler throws a pick at the end of the game, and the Vikings end up with the win. But it was not easy. Sam Darnold, he went 21 of 35, or 21 of 31 for 235 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. The Vikings only ran the ball for 68 yards in this game. Justin Jefferson had 99 yards receiving in this game. Jordan Addison 54, T.J. Hockenson 28. Aaron Jones had 2 fumbles. One of them he ended up losing, like I said early on in the game. Vikings defense only 1 sack of Kyler Murray. And Kyler wasn't that bad, although the interceptions were costly. 31 of 45, 260 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. The Cardinals ran the ball for 154 yards. James Conner had 68 yards on the ground. Trey Benson, 20 yards on the ground. DeMercado had 12. Trey McBride had 96 yards receiving. Marvin Harrison Jr. had 60 yards and a touchdown. The Cardinals defense actually had 5 sacks on the day of Sam Darnold. And, you thought they were going to pull off the upset. They were 3-point underdogs on the road, but, they just came up a little bit short here. And, for the Vikings, that's a big win for them. They get to 10-2. They still are a game behind the Lions for first place. But this team is going to make the playoffs, and, they could win 12 games, but, still end up being a wild card team. But that's the NFC North for you. That's the best division in football. I mean, even though the Bears are 4-8, they could have very well beat, all 3 teams that they just went up against, their 3 divisional opponents. It's just they were on the losing end of all 3. And then on top of that, you also have the Packers, who are 9-3 on the season. Big game tomorrow between the Lions and the Packers. That could be the game of the week. But, you got to give the Vikings credit, give Sam Darnold credit. He's put together a nice season. He's just under 3,000 yards passing. He's got 23 touchdowns to 10 picks. There's been a couple of games where, he hasn't played well, but overall he's put together a nice season. And he's in for a payday, a decent payday, when he hits the free agent market. I don't know if you got J.J. McCarthy coming back next year for the Vikings, so, that's their guy. But there's going to be a team out there that could use Sam Darnold. Now, the thing is, he ends up leaving Minnesota. He goes somewhere else where the situation's not as good, and he might not be as effective. This is one of the best landing spots he could have had for himself. Last year he was with the Niners, and then this year he ends up, taking on the starting quarterback job, and he's done well. But that's because the Vikings have a good system. They got good personnel around him. Now, if he goes to a team where the personnel is not as good, he's not going to be as good. I mean, we'll see, but I mean, we got to see where he ends up. But that's just how I look at it. But listen, they're not out of it in the division race. They're a game behind the Lions. They still have another chance to avenge that loss that they had earlier in the season where, they were up 10-0 and, it went back and forth a little bit. And the Lions, they were able to win it at the end with the Jake Bates field goal. But look, the Lions are vulnerable right now with the injuries, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But they're still a very good team. Of course, they're the best team in the NFC right now. And it's going to be tough to beat them because you have to go and beat them. The Packers, same thing tomorrow. They got to go to Detroit and try to beat them and try to, even that season series. So we'll see how it goes. But for the Cardinals, though, they were looking good. And then, you lose to the Seahawks last week, ugly game. And then, you have a game where you probably could have won or should have won. And you ended up letting that slip away. But they got another chance to beat the Seahawks. They still play the Rams one more time in the 49ers. You got the Patriots and the the Panthers have been playing better, so that's going to be a tough game. So, they still got a shot. They still got a shot here. The Seahawks 7-5 right now. If the Cardinals win, then they're going to be tied. So we'll see how that goes. But that's another tight race in the NFC West. So we will see what happens there. So yeah, but let me know what you guys think about this game. What were your takeaways from it? It's going to be interesting how that NFC West is going to play out because I mean, right now the Seahawks are in the driver's seat to win it, and you got the Cardinals and the Rams behind them. They each play each other one more time. The 49ers, I mean, again, I think they're kind of done at this point. But, who knows? I'm curious to see how it all plays out. But I give the Cardinals a lot of credit. I give Jonathan Gannon a lot of credit. This team has played better. And, partly because, Kyler Murray has played the whole year. Last year you saw what this team looked like when Kyler, came back. And, they were competitive. They, won some games. They beat the Eagles in Philly. Now you got a full year of him and, Marvin Harrison Jr. They're still trying to work on that, rapport. But at some point they will, and it's going to be, I mean, we've seen it at times this year when they are on the same page. It makes a difference. And, they extended James Conner for 2 more years, and he's been a consistent running back. He's been one of the most consistent running backs in the NFL. So there's a lot to like about the Cardinals going forward. But their season's not over yet. They can beat the Seahawks on Sunday, and then I think for the most part you control your own destiny. It's going to be tough down the stretch, but they still got a shot. It's just losing games like this late in the season when you're in a tight division race, it's tough. Every game matters. So and they don't really have a. I mean, they still even if they don't win the division, there's still a chance that maybe they could get a wild card. The Commanders did pick up a win on Sunday, so they kind of ended their skid. But, the other 2 spots are occupied by NFC North teams, the Packers and the Vikings. Those teams are both making the playoffs. The Packers made the playoffs last year at 9-8. They got 9 wins right now. They're not losing every single game to finish out the season. They're going to finish with 11 wins, 11 or 12 wins. At this point. So, every game's important. And for the Vikings, they can't afford to slip up because, they want to try to, I mean, in terms of the division, they can't afford to slip up. But, they're in a good spot when it comes to the wild card. They're the top wild card team. And, if they end up being that top wild card team, you're playing the NFC South. So, whether it's the Falcons or the Bucks, I like the I like the Vikings' chances. I mean, I would like their chances better if it's against the Falcons because of how Kirk Cousins has played. But they're playing him on Sunday, and he's not playing well. He is not playing well, and that game on Sunday could get ugly. If he plays like he did against the Chargers, and this is on the road now, and his last road start against the Broncos, that was bad too. The Vikings could take advantage of that and win that game. And for the Bucks, you got the Raiders at home, so if the Falcons end up losing and they end up winning, Bucks are back in first place. So, we'll see how that goes as well. But yeah, no, there's a lot of things to be excited about down the stretch. There's a lot of tight races, both in the wild cards and in the divisions. So the Vikings, though, I mean, they can end up with, like I said, 12 wins, and they're still a wild card team. But again, that's the nature of the NFC North, the best division in football. So that's my thoughts on that and this game. Again, it was an exciting game. Vikings pulling off the comeback, and the Cardinals out. That's a tough loss. So we'll see how they bounce back for their next game when they take on the Seahawks, which is a very important game for the NFC West. So we are going to take our next break, and then when we come back, we will talk about a couple of quarterbacks that got benched this season, and just kind of get into that conversation, and how both Anthony Richardson and Bryce Young have looked. We'll talk about them, how they, if the benching helped, which again it looks like it did. So I just wanted to acknowledge their performances over the last few weeks, and so that's what we will discuss when we come back from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.